Welcome, everybody. We are back for another week of the Bird's Nest. Thank you for joining. I have had this scheduled on my calendar, circled, ready to talk to somebody and introduce you to somebody today that you probably know from Gong. He is an account executive out there in the mid-market space. He has his own newsletter. He has phenomenal content on LinkedIn, and I'm really happy to have him here with me. So, Brian LaManna, how are you, man?
I'm awesome. I've had this circled as well, Dave. Appreciate you having me on.
No, it's been really cool, man, to get to know you a little bit. Through obviously we connected, but then I always say just doing my research, it's really interesting, what someone's story has. And I'm just, you know, we talked about going in and like everybody kind of knows I'm not one for a tactical, conversation on A/B testing and what a subject line is of an email. If you want to go there, I'll go there with you. But I think it's more fun just understanding kind of how you got to where you are, what challenges you face and kind of how you think about things. Then really also, man, like where you want to go, right? Like it's great that you're here, but I know you got different things you want to do and stuff like that, man. So let's kind of take this back a little bit. All right. You're one of the few people that I saw, and correct me if I'm wrong, that had sales and marketing as a major in college. Is that right?
That's correct. I had a funny feeling you were going to call that out.
So, first off, is it IU, Indiana?
Yep, IU, Indiana University. Go
Right,
Hoosiers.
big basketball. We can talk about the Hoosiers all day, I'm sure, right? You were like on, ESPN game day somewhere jumping around, I'm sure. But from why did you go into that like off the bat, or did you?
Yeah, well, ever since I was 5, I knew I wanted to be in SaaS sales. No, I'm kidding. It's funny you call that out and mention it because I did major in sales. I actually switched my major while at Indiana University to sales. So just to take a quick step back, in high school, I was fortunate enough that our high school offered a good amount of business courses. I took a marketing, an accounting, a sports marketing, just kind of dipped my toes. And I knew I wanted to be in business in some capacity. So I applied to Indiana University. I was fortunate enough to get into the Kelly School of Business. And I started off as actually a marketing major, which I don't think too many people know. Come sophomore year, there was a friend in my fraternity that was going to a workshop meeting for the global sales workshop one night. And I was just sitting around after class one day and he was like, oh, come with me. Like, we're allowed to bring anyone. Like, recruiting's coming up in a couple of weeks. And I'd never really fully considered sales. I knew I liked interacting with people, and it just never really came across my head. I think some of it's just some of the stigma with sales. I think I thought of it as more like, what a car salesman might do or going door to door. I didn't really know the world of tech sales existed at the time. And it was really a slow evolution. I got into that sales workshop. I switched my major into sales. I did an outside sales internship with Anheuser-Busch actually after junior year. I learned everything I hate about sales, which is zero commission, declining industries, declining products, Excel spreadsheets, going store to store visits type of thing. But I heard of all these other people doing internships at companies like Salesforce and Gartner and, these larger names. And the more I heard about it, the more I asked and had different questions, and was fortunate enough that kind of that bad experience in sales in a way led me to what I wanted to do, which was more inside or tech sales, and ended up taking an SDR position out of college after I graduated in 2018.
Nice. All right, so let me do like higher math here, man. So you graduated college in 2018.
Correct.
Okay. So you've been in sales 5 years, right? What do
Yes.
you say to people that you're like, hey, man, you've only been in sales 5 years? I'm sure you kind of get this, and either it's vocalized or it's kind of like that, perception, right? Like, what do you tell people?
It's come up multiple times at different stages, both at previous company and current as well. Uh, at my prior company, they were very transparent with what it took to get from that SDR position to account executive. And they actually set a hard figure, which was, hey, once you set 178, very specific, qualified meetings, you're eligible to interview for account executive. And it took most reps, 18 months, some it took up to 30 months, so kind of a 1.5 to 3 year journey. And I actually completed in under 10 months, and that was my goal. So I broke out that 178, how I was going to do that on a weekly basis. And that was one of the main objections I faced. Once I hit 178, I was like, I'm ready to interview for it. I'm ready to attack. I was the fastest ever at that company to be AE eligible. And there was a lot of pushback just around, oh, don't know if you're ready yet or have the business acumen or things of that nature. So I really just try to point back to the results, point back to my experience in sales, what I've accomplished versus the age number or the total number of years, but more of the pointed experiences that showcase I'm ready for that next position or next level.
Man, I think we all have, some piece, right? Like I've only been in sales, I want to say it's like 12, like 13 years, right? I was military project management. All of a sudden I said, hey, the sales thing looks cool. Why not try that at age 37, right? And, like it's still something that I learn every day, right? And that's the beauty of just being surrounded by people. And like I told you before we came, if you will, live, I was like, I love doing these because I learn, right? Who do you learn from, man? Who's your go-to? And that could be, inside Gong. There's a whole host of that, and we're going to get there. But who's outside? Who's inside? Who's your go-to that you lean on a little bit?
Yeah, I'll share it's changed a lot, right? It's pivoted when I was an SDR, when I was an AE at a prior company, when I was in commercial at Gong versus mid-market today. And I think it should continue to evolve. I think my playbook in general, at every position I've been in, from SDR to different levels of AE, is figure out who is the absolute best of the different components. And I basically compare it to like trying to super score your ACT, where it's like, hey, figure out who's the best at math, who's the best at science, who's the best at reading, and learn exactly from them, right? Because if there's somebody that's already crushing those elements in that role, you don't have to reinvent the wheel, right? I came into Gong and there were top performers already putting up 300% of their number. Like Gabrielle was a girl I looked up to on my team, and she was, putting up, $2.5 million on an 800K quota. Well, I wanted to learn, hey, what makes Gabrielle so great, right? She was tremendous at discovery. So I was like, I'm going to learn from her specifically for discovery. For someone else that's really good at negotiation, I'm going to learn from them for that. And that's really been my starting point, is just learn from them, imitate and steal, right? Or copy basically their talk tracks. And slowly over time, you'll make it your own, right? And you'll put your own spin on it, but no need to go about, trying to be the hero and, creating a new way of doing things from the onset. So that's been kind of who I've looked up to within those roles, is figuring out who's the best at the different areas that I want to get better at and improve at. In terms of LinkedIn, I mean, there's a host of people that I look up to, and I've learned and literally implemented same day from a post or something they've shared. Folks like Jacob Karp at Rubrik, Kyle AC at MongoDB, Kristen Connor at User Gems, a lot of other people I could name too, but just people that post like really strong tactical advice. Slow down when you see a really strong post like that, copy that over into your notes and, pencil and paper, practice it a couple of times versus just hitting a like and continuing to scroll. Because it's like, free university if you follow the right people and are willing to, take a couple extra minutes to practice it through, to learn it, to dig a little bit deeper as well.
That's awesome, man. I've talked a lot about here, and I had Jacob on here as well, like about a month and a half ago. Great guy, great interview. But we've talked about ego before, right? About not letting that get in your way. Now, as sales professionals, we're confident. There's, but we all like to say that our ego doesn't get in the way. Have you found that to be the case, man? Like, have you seen, you know, I mean, I guess every day is different, but have you seen your ego kind of at times you have to check it a little bit and say, hey, man, I can still learn, right? I'm crushing. I saw your numbers, right? Posted, I think, in your piece, like 400% quota, right? But have you ever had to, just check yourself and go, hey, man, take a step back and, kind of just, put yourself back into a mode where you want to learn again and not, think you got it.
Yeah. I feel like I'm constantly humble. I think even though you can put up 100% or 200% a goal, like when you still, you might win 30% of your deals, when you still lose 70% on the contrary, every time I lose a deal, I think of it as a learning opportunity of like, hey, what were a couple of reasons why I lost it? Were there any aspects I could have done to get in front of it or get in front of some of that risk? So I think you have to have that like always be learning mindset. It actually reminds me a little bit kind of your statement on like checking your ego. My stepmom would always tell me as a child, like there's a difference between being confident and being cocky. And being confident is that like inner belief in yourself, knowing that you're able to achieve that, that you're, going to give your absolute best day in and day out. But being cocky is when you protrude that externally, like you're better than everyone else, that you're above that you don't want to learn. That always stuck with me for whatever reason. And, it's just something I've tried to apply in every new role, every new manager, every new teammate. I know there's things I can learn from them. And I know I can be doing even better in my current role as well.
Yeah. And I mean, just from what I can see, and obviously LinkedIn is a surface, but you did, and I think I give you credit for this. You did post and say, hey man, in let me get this right, in May or June, you had like a rough month, right? And you posted about that and said, hey, look, I was at, I think the number was like 30% the goal or something of that nature. What made you post about that?
Similar to you in a way, I think what I've tried to do with LinkedIn is more or less just share my like authentic journey and every step along the road. I sit down really every Sunday and I write typically my 4 or 5 posts for the week. I write them all in one block so I can stay really focused on the week, but I just write about what's current, what's relevant, what's most top of mind with me. And in a way, LinkedIn is kind of my like public journal. So if I'm going to share about like the positive moments, like, hitting 308% in Q1, like you have to be willing and vulnerable enough to show the lowlights as well when something isn't going well or you're off pace. I think I put up 15% of my goal in May, and I'm willing to share that with the public as well and lessons I took from it and how I could have gotten in front of it. Funny enough, I think my like top, quote unquote, performing LinkedIn post ever was in November or December of last year when I posted about everything that went wrong over the course of the month, from getting no-showed to getting ghosted to losing a couple deals really late stage. And I think people just like and appreciate the vulnerability. And if you're going to share the highlights, you got to share the lowlights as well. So it's just disingenuous to me.
That's awesome, man. So obviously you're part of a big name company, right? I mean, everybody knows it. And if they don't know it, if you guys don't know Gong, go check them out. They are, the platform itself, is phenomenal, right? I mean, I was there, but coming into that, you're stepping into an organization that's got big personalities on LinkedIn. I mean, you got Sarah Brazier there, you got a ton of people there that would almost feel like, all right, like, do I belong? And, how much am I going to put out on LinkedIn? And, like, what do I do? Like maybe I take it easy for the first year and just kind of tiptoe into this whole LinkedIn thing while I'm here. Like, I'm part of Gong, like, really, do I belong here now? Did you have any of those thoughts going into that?
That's exactly how I felt. Yeah, you're walking into a company that's growing like crazy. We were 600 employees at the time, had just gotten a funding round valuing the company at $7+ billion in the peak of 2021. That's when I joined in August of 2021, and I think what a lot of people don't realize, I actually didn't post my first 11 months at Gong.
Really?
Yeah, my first time I started really being active on LinkedIn was about a year ago. It was about July 1st of 2022. And I think it's for all the reasons you just mentioned, is that you have imposter syndrome when you first join a company, whether it is Gong or any other place. There's always going to be top performers that are doing well, or established folks with the name and the internal capital and the recognition. And it didn't completely cross my mind, honestly, to get active on LinkedIn right away. But to kind of flip it around in another way, it did inspire me as well. Because when I joined, there were people like Sarah and Udi and our CEO and me that were putting themselves out there, that were, posting videos of themselves, posting their thoughts, their comments on different life events, on their successes and failures in sales. And I took it as inspiration. It obviously took me a little while to act on it and start to scale it up a bit. But I think I was at the point then, 4 years into my sales career, thinking like, hey, just because I'm 25 years old doesn't mean I haven't learned lessons so far in my 4 years of sales, both positive, both negative, that I feel other people could, hopefully be able to benefit in some way, whether they can capitalize on different things that have been successful for me, or learn from different failures and get in front of them as well. So that's really how it started out. Just tried posting once a week, scaled up to twice a week, and kept going until I felt comfortable enough writing, 5, 6 times a week, which was, closer to end of last year, when I started kind of, systematizing it all. But yeah, a lot of those thoughts definitely crossed my mind.
I mean, I think that takes, uh, it's natural, it's human, but I appreciate you sharing that. Right. And I mean, and I want to get to there's a whole lot of things. And I always have about 9 things I want to get to. And I get to about 2 of them, but there's a whole lot of good stuff as I look to my left here that I want to get to. But you started, if I heard you right there, you started posting, let's say, like once a day a year ago. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. And you're at how many followers right now, bro? Like 30,000, or like, something crazy?
Yeah, it went from about 0 to 10 in the first 6 months,
Okay.
and then 10 to close to 30 where it's at today in the following 6. So it definitely had that kind of hockey stick takeoff, where the first couple of posts, I'm sure almost nobody saw them, and they flopped or this or that. But I was lucky enough to have some friends and family support me in the beginning. Like, what the heck am I
Hey man,
doing?
can you like my post? I've got nothing. Can you give me one? Can you give me something?
Yeah.
Right? But I mean, in all seriousness, I mean, you have to admit that's not normal, right? I mean, to have that engagement, and I've seen your post. I mean, there's engagement, there's really, really good content. Um, you know, what do you attribute that to? Like, that's going from literally nothing to, yeah, you're going to post once a day. I get it. But now 25, 28, 30,000, that's a significant piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, great question. I don't know if I fully like psychoanalyze it myself yet. I think I'm fortunate that in my first 4 years in sales between two different companies, I uh always worked hard. I was fortunate enough to become a top performer, win 3 presidents clubs at that point as well. And I feel like I was fortunate enough that I had a base of people that were ready to support my post from the get-go if I did go on to something like LinkedIn.
Okay.
Going as well has a lot of people just at the company that are pretty active in general. So I think I had the unique advantage of, some people saying, hey, Brian posted, oh, I'm definitely going to support that, or drop a comment or something like that. And I think over the last 6 months, I attribute most to just like the consistency of it, and
Mhm.
really engaging and like building connections outside of just LinkedIn as well, doing things like coffee chats, messaging folks like yourself as well, and getting to know some other people on LinkedIn, because it's really like anything else in life. The more you give and the more deposits, the more you receive in return as well. And I've been fortunate enough, I've received so much from LinkedIn, just in terms of like different learnings, different lessons from other folks. And they've been, very thoughtful in supporting me as well.
Okay. So let's kind of shift gears here a little bit, man.
Yeah.
So speaking of LinkedIn, which kind of goes to it, you changed your picture lately. to like this like lake, I think you're at, right? Like in Canada or something. You kind of showed a side of yourself that, hey man, I'm not the, the tie, the jacket, the, whatever you want to call it, blazer. I'm outside. This is who I am, which is great. But as I kept going, you posted on, hey, and I want to say it was April, but basically you said, hey, it's the end of the month, end of quarter. I'm at a beach, right? And I'm getting away and I'm enjoying this, right? And I found that to be, I didn't expect it. Like here I have this guy posting percentages on quarters and crushing, and your sales content's phenomenal. And all of a sudden I scroll and I go, yeah, man, get away. Here's a picture of the beach, and here's I'm with my girlfriend, and like later live life. And it just seemed to have this. I mean, it was awesome. Don't get me wrong, but it took me by surprise a little bit. Like, is that how you've always been?
So I think like 2 or 3 months ago, I did a bit of like an audit of just like my own post. Because when it started out, it was like I just want to post those sales lessons I referred to of like the successes, the failures, help others breaking into tact for the first time. And I stayed really narrowly in that lane through, called the first like 9 months of my journey. And as I grew the following, I kind of learned that somebody I actually ran into at Gong and I met for the first time in person was like, oh my God, Brian, you're such like a relaxed, chill person. I thought you're super uptight, super like, sales geek, sales nerd, just from like what you share online. And I think candidly, it hit me pretty hard. And I was like, yeah, because it's like all I ever post about. And, even though LinkedIn is, 2% of my life, like it's what people see, out of me, 98% of the time. So I think I just did a little bit of a reevaluation of like, I am a pretty, it's funny, I'm wearing a polo right now, but I'm normally wearing like t-shirts. I'm in joggers under the polo as well. I'm a pretty like laid back, pretty casual person. I definitely prioritize life stuff as much, or if not as work stuff. But I hadn't really like shared that side of me yet, or given off that vibe. And I think at a certain point, it almost felt unauthentic of me to only post about sales stuff if people were starting to get to know me, because I don't want people to think you just have to think about sales 24/7 to be successful in your role, because you absolutely don't. I don't work, I'm not working 50 plus hours a week to see success or generate results, and wanted to make sure I could kind of share the entire journey as well outside of just the sales journey.
I mean, again, I think it's spot on, man. And the more I get to know you, the more it makes sense to me, in terms of who you are, your journey, kind of, what LinkedIn, I guess, is showing now, maybe the real you, right? In terms of who you've been all along, in terms of that. So while we hit like the last, little bit here, I do want to make sure I have time to dive deep into this. Your newsletter, right? So here we are at some point of time. Where did this, like, how did this start? Like, what idea did you have that first kind of said, yeah, maybe, and then we morph into something that's really grown and been successful? How does this all come?
About at the 6 month mark. So if we think about me starting posting for the first time a year ago, around like mid-December timeframe, I got some advice and was starting to speak with other people that were scaling up, their brands on LinkedIn. I was probably at 9 or 10,000 followers, and someone made the comment. I think it was Darren McKee mentioned to me that you got to think about as well that you're on this rented audience, in terms of like you're fully dependent on something like LinkedIn, and if you really want to continue and build a personal brand as well, you should think about having an audience that more or less like you own and that you're in full control of. And one of the best ways to do that is via something like a newsletter. For example, if LinkedIn disappeared a year from now, all my work, completely out of my control, would be to waste. But I would still have something like a newsletter to share, my feedback, my tips, things like that. So I kind of parlayed like getting that advice from a personal brand side of things with just thinking about my own content as well, where LinkedIn kind of limits you in a way. I'm not going to post something that's 10,000 words or takes you through start to finish from how to write the perfect cold email, just because it's way too lengthy and way too long. So I wanted an easier way to build like longer form and share longer form content. so at the same time in mid-December, I launched the newsletter, and then I launched different like guides and playbooks on a website called Gumroad
Hmm.
of both free and paid resources of like, hey, here's a 28-page guide on different email templates on how to write an email from start to finish and what I found success. So I kind of think about it now as like, I have a great idea. I want to share it. I can share that once on LinkedIn in a more shorter form post. I can write that same thing in a medium form post over something like a newsletter. And then if somebody wants like the ins and outs, every single detail, I have this third resource as well, where I can put together like a 30-page PDF on, how to do everything in the book for, that topic.
Nice. Now, from a time perspective, man, like on a weekly basis, how much time are you putting into that newsletter and the other content that you mentioned?
Yeah. So I've been really intentional about trying to only build things that I can easily scale. So something like those like guides or playbooks, it's like, hey, I could build that in 2 days, spend 12 hours,
Hmm.
and it's going to be good for a year, right? Maybe I have to make some updates, but build it once, it's good for a year. Same thing with the newsletters. Like I put, 5 to 10 hours into the template, into building a website, building up the domain credibility, a lot of very boring stuff. But that template now, and it only takes me about 15 minutes every
Really?
Monday morning to just basically fill out that template, put in some fresh content, fresh ideas, and send it off. Um,
Really?
yeah.
That's
So
I would think you're talking hours. Like I would have thought you're a couple hours to do a newsletter each week, and you're saying that you have 15 minutes. I mean, and it's still good content, don't get me wrong, but you're thinking you do 15, 20 minutes and crank it out.
it's really brief, and that's the way I work a little bit too. Like I prefer simplicity, brevity. So with the newsletter, I didn't want to be that newsletter that I've opened up on my phone before that I'm just scrolling and then delete and don't read any of it. So I just try to share like one actionable sales tip or sales advice for that
Yeah.
week. And then a couple other things that like, if you want to learn more, the top LinkedIn post of the week, the top podcast of the week, just quick links. So they're super readable, and it makes it really easy. But yeah, I spend 15 minutes on that newsletter. I spend about an hour and a half writing those 5 posts for the week. I schedule them. And then that allows me Monday through Friday. I get to spend 95% of my time on my core job, which is Gong, trying to be the best performer I can be,
No, no,
trying to stay
your
past
core
quota.
job's not posting content on LinkedIn, Brian. Come on, man.
It,
Come
it is
on.
not. And then during the week, I can just engage with others, engage with other posts or respond to comments. But I don't have to be in that situation where Tuesday morning I'm, trying to write a LinkedIn post and have 5 emails, have a meeting in 15 minutes, because that's been a lot of stress comes, at least how I
What do
felt
you
about it.
use to schedule your LinkedIn post?
I began with a tool called Buffer, which is
Hmm.
free. I think they're a great solution for anyone listening. Like that is definitely where I would start. I've upgraded to a system called Taplio, which is probably the more premium offering that I do have to pay for. Try to be very frugal, especially in creator world where you don't bring in much revenue, if any. But it was worth paying for it just because it
Is
makes
it
my life.
TAP? Is that what it is? Taplio?
Yeah, Taplio.
Got it. Perfect. Okay. All right. I lied in terms of the newsletter being the last. Let's understand like where you go, right?
Yeah.
2, 3, 5 years, right? Like what do you want to do?
That answer changes depending on when you ask me. If you asked me 6 months ago or a year ago, I would have said like I want to be a future CRO, want to be a future VP of sales. That's been more or less my dream the last like 3 or so years. More recently, I've fallen in love with just being an individual contributor and building up the kind of solopreneur, the creator stuff on the side. Because I think that's a little bit easier to manage with like being an individual contributor versus like managing a team or leading a sales org, which is just incredibly time consuming for obvious reasons. So I'm pretty 50-50 right now if I want to go into sales leadership someday or stay as an individual contributor, but no massive plans in terms of the LinkedIn newsletter, Gumroad side of things. I I try to keep a really like narrow focus into what I do best and things I can scale. And if it doesn't contribute to that, I try to be ultra protective of my time and not go into something like TikTok where I don't even have a TikTok app on my phone or YouTube or things like that. I don't know, video is not my strength. So I try to stay within my lane and just fully execute and will keep my ears peeled for any other opportunities that might come.
Oh, I mean, there's no doubt you're gonna come up with some different stuff, and I'm gonna reach out to you and go, "Hey, man, I thought you said no." I was like, "Oh, it's good." I mean, as I get to know you more, I can totally see that. You probably have something deep in back. You're like, "Yeah, it may come to the surface, it may not, but I'll keep it for now, right?" So I get you, man. I get you. All right, let's wrap up a little bit of fun here, man. NFL team, you have a favorite?
Chicago Bears.
Of course you do. Downtown. I mean, you're living down there. So you got Justin Fields, keeper, 3-year guy. Is he going to go away? Like what do you think, man?
He's gonna surprise some people this year. Him and DJ Moore, they're gonna have a great connection. I think he's gonna surprise some people with his arm talent. That's what he did at Ohio State. He wasn't just a runner. I think he's had to do it out of necessity, more just running for his life with a terrible offensive line. So definitely.
Man, shout out to the offensive line for the Bears. Hopefully you guys didn't hear that too much, but it's fine.
Out there
For the record,
listening.
I agree with you, but that's okay. So, from a standpoint of little March Madness, man, where'd you end up this year? Being a Hoosiers guy, basketball's kind of your thing, right? Like I'm sure Gong's got like a crazy March Madness thing going on, knowing you guys, right? So like where'd you end up, man? You do you,
Yeah.
anything?
I had Indiana winning it all because
Of course you did.
I'm so incredibly biased that I couldn't resist the urge. And if they did win it all, I couldn't be the guy that picked them to lose in the Sweet 16. So I did not do very well. My girlfriend actually went to Marquette, so I had Marquette versus Indiana in the
Oh wow,
championship.
that's a
And
set, man. That's come on, man. Come on, you're
I
going
had
India.
IU winning.
Come on, man. Man,
Didn't work
you're
out,
picking the
but
girlfriend's alma mater, but that's tough. That's tough, bro. I don't know about that, man.
hey, they were good. They're the 2 seed
Yeah, you're good.
last year,
You're
so
going to defend it. That's okay. You're good.
she's gonna barge in here if I keep talking shit.
You're good. You're good. Don't worry. Don't worry. All right. Well, look, Brian.
Yeah.
Awesome, awesome time. This surpassed my expectations. I hope everybody listening. There's about 3 clips that I always say. I always want to take those 30 seconds and literally just write them down. You've probably given me 5 or 6, right? And I hope everybody, has a point where you can go back and just find it. But Brian, thank you again, man. We're gonna do this. If I ever come to Chicago, I promise, man, we'll get together for that adult beverage, right? Hopefully, if Marquette's on, I'm sure you can root for him, but whatever, right? So, well, thank you again, Brian. I appreciate you being here, man.
Yeah, thanks so much, Dave, and definitely let me know when you're in Chicago.
I will. All right, everybody. Hey, another week down, another great guest. We have an awesome lineup coming up here for the rest of, I guess, August as time flies by. Thanks again, and be safe, everybody.